welcome to City Conversations. I'm sitting here with Chad MacDonald from Westside Church in Vancouver, BC. Chad, it's been great hanging out with you this afternoon and getting to know you a little bit. Tell us a little about Westside Church.
Sure, yeah. Westside Church is a young ministry in Vancouver, and we've been around for about 5.5 years. We're part of the Mennonite Brethren Conference of churches, and very young demographic as well. We're primarily between the age of 20 and 40. A lot of young single professionals, young families, newly married, things like that. And we've just seen great growth and God at work in the ministry over 5 years. We've grown from about 40 to 750 in 5 years.
In 5 years.
Yeah, so it's been really encouraging, and just seeing God work amongst the ministry and people come to the doors that either never knew Jesus or left the church and are now back. So it's been great. So we love our city. We love Jesus and proclaiming the gospel.
And what is your role at Westside Church? There's a lot of wacky titles in churches these days, like pastor of technology or pastor of experiences. I believe yours is pastor of ministry development.
Yep.
What does that mean? What do you do?
Sure. I kind of often say it's a bit of a junk drawer term. It involves a lot of different roles. I started with that title almost 5 years ago, and I've kept it. I think it works well for what I do and what I oversee. But primarily my role is morphed, and now it's responsible for a lot of our operational, day-to-day operations, things like our community partnerships, lease agreements. We rent theater space we don't own our own building on Sundays. So we rent office space. We also rent a couple of facilities for 2 of our campuses to meet on Sunday mornings. One's a movie theater and one's a live performance theater. So I oversee those leases, those arrangements, the agreements. I also help manage some of the staff and their timetables and their to-do lists and things like that. As well, I oversee our local and global missions. So what we're doing in the community for local missions, primarily like church planting, working with that and our campuses, as well as what we're doing in India with global missions. And also I serve on the elder board as well. So
it really is a junk drawer position.
It is. It's,
you do everything.
Yeah. Now the term ministry development, really just anything that I can be doing to develop and move forward and help develop in the ministry. So
that's great. Okay, so you mentioned you guys have 2 campuses. You're very close to the core of Vancouver, the downtown area. What is your vision for community? How do you guys be a community at Westside Church?
Sure, I think community is one of those terms that, as my boss and our lead pastor has said many times, that people like the idea of community, but when the rubber meets the road, people don't often like the work that's involved in community. So we like the concept. We often have either a skewed concept of what true community is, or when true community starts to poke its head out, we don't like what it looks at or what it looks like. Yes. So that's a whole nother conversation, but I think really community at Westside Church is primarily driven through the small group communities midweek.
Okay.
So that would be the primary way that we encourage people to be in community, but we also say that it's really important to be in community outside of the ministry as well. So it's our biggest missions program that we have is our people, and we tell them that almost weekly that they are our missionaries, they are our missions program. So when they go to their workplaces, their coffee shops, their yoga classes, or wherever, their goal is to be on mission for the gospel, for the message. And so community is really an important aspect of where you're involved outside of ministry, people that you interact with in our city. Also, that second component of small groups, and because biblical community is really important too, to be fed by one another, to be the body of Christ that we're called to be. what it means to truly be the church and in community. So small groups as well as reaching out to the community at large.
And with a church that's growing as fast as you guys have grown, I imagine communication changes a great deal over the years. How are you guys dealing with the complexity of the need to communicate to a growing body?
Yeah, communication is really important. And I mean, yeah, your methods of communication change. I mean, they're different when you're a church of 20 or 40. Communication can be a simple roundtable discussion. And then when you grow and all of a sudden you're 400, 600, 700, communication looks a lot different. There's a lot less ways for people to sort of give their input or opinion, because it's a different game when you're running. It's like comparing a match of squash versus a match or a game of football, where there's a lot of players involved. In football, there's the offense and defense, there's the different coaches, things like that, where a game of squash is a lot smaller. There's 2 people, there's no coach, there's no referee. So you go from playing one game to the next, and you need to sort of learn the different communication methods as you switch games. But yeah, I think, were you asking, like, do you want to know some of the ways we communicate?
Yeah, that would be helpful. I mean,
sure.
I mean, we're a tech company, so
Right.
how do you use technology?
Sure. Well, it was primarily when we started through the good old-fashioned email. It was email, and actually, no, that's not entirely true. We used Constant Contact.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
And I hope Constant Contact doesn't watch this, because we hated Constant Contact.
No.
I know. So we then eventually, a year ago, we switched to using the city. And that was when we were right about at the 600 people mark for growth. And that was really a pivotal change for us. And we've seen 12 months of success. And the city's really streamlined communication for us with our people. It really is an effective way of communicating midweek.
Okay. Yeah, and that was actually where I was kind of go with that is as the pastor of ministry development, how are you communicating to people midweek using the city? How's that looked for you?
Sure. Well, it all of a sudden went from like spending 4 or 5, 6 hours a day on email, because my role is very administrative, to spending that time, or a little bit less time, actually just communicating on the city. I would say I communicate 90% with Westside Church through the city.
Huh.
There might be that other 10% that either are not on the city yet, or they're not on as regularly as we would like, so you can know you can reach them quicker on email. But most people I communicate through direct messages on the city or through group messages. The other big part of my role, which I forgot to mention in the beginning of our conversation, was I also oversee all of our service opportunities at Westside. So I manage the leaders that manage the teams, things like all the teams that make a Sunday morning happen, from the setup team, the teardown team, cafe team, and security team, and all those teams, those service teams. So primarily my role midweek is communicating with those leaders, making sure they're equipped and empowered to do what they need to do for Sunday.
Wow, that's a big job. And the city handles all that for you.
Absolutely, yeah. It certainly has, and it's made things much simpler for myself and the rest of the team. We all use the city. Norm, our lead pastor, uses it. Our worship, deacon of worship arts uses it. Our deacon of production and media, he uses it. Our pastor of family ministries, we're all involved in it, using it kind of in our distinct areas.
Excellent. All right, one more city-related question. We'll go more to philosophy stuff. As you guys were rolling it out at Westside, how did you communicate that to the church, and how did you lead through that transition, going from really not using anything to, hey, church, we're going to be on the city?
Yeah, well, it was a process that we really thought through. It's kind of like they say with Twitter, right? Don't just jump in and do Twitter, even though it's a free thing. You can just sign up and get a free account and load your photo up and start saying things. They really tell you to think through what you want to say and what you want to broadcast to the world, especially if you're an organization like a church. Like, don't just Don't just jump in. Be prepared. Have a plan.
Right.
Is what I'm saying. So we really thought through that. Like, what is our plan? How are we going to launch? How are we going to draw people in? How are we going to promote and publicize? And what's our vision for the city? And I think it really starts with the staff. That's really where it needs to start. You really need to all be on the same page. You need to be all willing to be on and to use. You don't all have to have the same level of excitement, because some people are a lot more passionate about technology than others, and so it's not that you're all on the same level, passionate wise, I guess, if I can say that, but more on the same level that you're going to use it as a team, and I think that's really important. And then launching it to the body is really important, that you think through execution and how you're going to publicize it and promote it, whether you're going to use the mediums of video or t-shirts, or you're going to have people sign up through iPads in the lobby on a Sunday. Or we had beta users. We had all of our leadership, sort of small group leaders and ministry team leaders. They were kind of our beta users.
Interesting. So you kind of tiered.
We tiered in,
Okay.
And then all of a sudden we went live with it on a Sunday morning, and really it does. I mean, the lead pastor of a ministry, his opinion really matters most of the time. We call it lead pastoritis. People really just, they have great respect for the lead pastor, and I think that's a good thing. Sometimes it comes with its negatives, but I think have a great respect. So if the lead pastor is really on board with the city and what it can and will do for the ministry and explains that to the body, I think that goes a long way. So those are just some small ways that we really thought through that.
Did you get any pushback from people like, hey, why am I joining on another social network, or isn't this just Facebook for the church, or did you guys hear any of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we got some pushback, and we just kicked them out of our church. No, we did get some pushback. I mean, we're dealing with a very young demographic, so we're very thankful that our pushback was very minimal. We get the odd person that says, I don't sign up for things like that online because of privacy issues, or we got maybe one person that said, I don't have an email account, but again, because of our demographic, we didn't have that problem as much. But I could see that being an issue with some churches where they have a real broad demographic. You may get a bunch of people in your ministry that don't use the internet or have an email address. So, and then we had some pushback with like, it's just a Facebook for the church, where it really is a completely different tool. It looks similar in a lot of ways, but for us, it really has been an assimilation tool. It is a way, it does facilitate community. It allows Westsiders a place to engage with one another and sell a futon, or invite someone up for coffee, or post a prayer request, or let someone know a need. But I would say from a staff point of view, it's very much an assimilation tool. And what I mean by that is getting people moving in the same direction. So getting all of our teams organized, scheduling, communicating, preparing for Sunday, posting announcements and events, and it really does. It's kind of like having, everybody hates announcements on a Sunday morning. It's like the necessary evil. I do announcements at Westside, and so it's like the necessary evil of needing to do announcements. But it's like the city is like having all day to do announcements. It's like the announcement opportunity, and you're not bugging people like you are on a Sunday morning.
Get on with it, man.
Get on with it, exactly. We want to hear the guy preach.
Right.
Who's this guy giving announcements? Where the city is that place where you can really tell your body what we're doing as a community, as a church, how to sign up, how to get involved. And then in the midst of that, community happens. People converse, and people share stories, and people share prayer requests and needs, and they invite each other for coffee. But primarily, I see it as like an assimilation tool.
Yeah, an assimilation tool with kind of like a, it's got there's a private aspect to it.
Absolutely, people love that. And every Sunday we say, we just small plug. We'll just say, sign up for the city. It's our private online social network. That's what we say over and over. It's our private online social network, and we want people to know that it's private. It's for Westsiders, and if people ask to be a part of it that aren't part of the ministry, we just say no.
Excellent. All right, this is a question that that we've been thinking a lot about here at the city, as we look out and we see a lot of our churches going through growth and going through change. How do you lead through change? Like, how do you lead your body through that? How do you stay on mission? And what are the areas that you find yourself saying yes, and the areas that you find yourself saying no, or do you say no?
We say no a lot, actually, and I don't mean that to sound like mean or sort of crass, but we do have to say no a lot. We really do. We're a ministry that likes to keep things as simple as possible, and sort of under program as opposed to over program. As I mentioned earlier, like our greatest program is our people, as far as the mission goes and what they're doing in their workplaces and in their community and in their coffee shops. So we do our best to sort of under program. So it's saying no to a lot of ideas and a lot of, I just, Norm said once, our lead pastor said to us in a staff meeting, just because it's a good idea, it doesn't mean it's a God idea for us at this time. So just because something's a great idea, it doesn't mean it's an idea for Westside right now or ever will be.
Yeah.
So good doesn't mean it's God's plan for you. So people will come to you and say, oh, have you thought about doing this? And it's like, oh, it's a great idea, but it's not something that either God's calling us to or fits with our vision.
Right.
So that's where the no often comes in.
So is that more of a function of not wanting to institute things from a programmatic level and really maybe putting the weight on the people of the church to really kind of carry these things? Like, even if it's a good idea, like, hey, maybe you should lead that in your community, or is it more like we just don't want you to do that?
No, it's definitely like hey, that's a great idea, you should do that, but it doesn't mean it will end up on our website or we'll talk about it on a Sunday morning, or it'll even end up on the city.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what a lot of times people want, is they want their idea birthed for the church at large. Right. And it's promoted, and we do take some of those ideas, and we've had some great success with some things we've started that people have suggested. But it does involve saying no to a lot to keep things simple and keep calendars free. And people, I think as pastors, we forget, like, we think about the church all the time. Like, it's our job. Like, it's what we do, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And for these other people at 10 Westside, they actually have lives outside of ministry. They have jobs, they have hobbies, they have clubs they're a part of. And that is what we encourage, and that's what we feel how you engage culture the best. But again, so that's why we really feel like we want to equip people on Sunday morning with the gospel and how then to effectively live as Christians in our city. And that, like I was saying earlier, that's the best missions program that I think any ministry can have.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's spot on.
But you asked a question. What was the first part of the question?
The first part of the question was, how do you lead through change?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as a church grows, that can be a thing that people really struggle with. Like, hey, I started coming here when there was 40 people, and now there's 400. Yeah. It's a different... So how have you guys dealt with that?
Yes, and I think the success for that answer at Westside has been, we have changed almost every season since the first year we started. So change at Westside is the norm, and stability is the abnorm at Westside. So
change is the norm.
Stability
is the norm. The abnorm.
Yeah, so people are used to that, and I think it's the ethos that you create.
Yeah.
And I think we never want people to get comfortable. And I don't mean that in like, it's never good to be comfortable. I think there is, but comfort can lead to sort of the unwillingness to be open to change. Because I'm comfortable, I don't want things to change at Westside. I don't want to change venues because this is what I'm used to, and I like to know what to expect. Whereas, we've really had to embed that into the culture of Westside, that we're on mission. We're a ministry that is going to grow as large as God would have us grow. So we may be out of this venue in 6 months because we may not have seats. So don't sort of pick a seat and don't sort of get comfortable with that, because that will likely change, Lord willing.
Yeah.
So I think people have, but I think, so it's been talked about a lot along the way. It's not been like no change, boom, big change, and everyone's like, whoa. Yeah. It's just like, it's created in the ethos of your ministry of like, Well, first of all, it's not about you.
Right.
It's about the kingdom. So, and you have to say that in a gentle way to the body, of course.
I imagine you have to say that over and over and over again.
Sure, and it is something. And the vision you mentioned, like, just, it's really important to repeat the vision. People need to be reminded of vision daily, or weekly, or whatever. And our vision is to make Jesus known. And, I hope that our people know that, and to make him known in our city primarily. We really feel that that's where God's mission field is for us, and then beyond. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I think that that segues into the next question fantastically. Earlier you were saying you guys are a multi-campus church at the moment, but as we were talking before we had this conversation, you had mentioned that where you're at, it's not really a sustainable model, and that you're actually, your vision is to consolidate those two campuses and become one campus again. And that seems like kind of going in a different direction from where a lot of churches are trying to go. So I'm curious, kind of your guys' thought behind that, and what is how did that vision evolve?
Sure. Well, I guess I should also say, that's our kind of our plan or vision right now, but we do recognize that we're open to whatever could happen. Some people always ask us, are you open to owning your own building? Are you going to always rent? And we kind of say, yeah, to both.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're unsure at this time. I think there's some great advantages to owning your own property, and there's lots of disadvantages. Also, the type of venue that you meet in can completely change the ethos of the ministry, which I think is very important. So I'm sort of straying from your question. The original part of the question was,
how did the vision evolve?
Right,
from going from multi-campus back to...
Yeah. So that's kind of our idea right now, but that may not come to fruition. But it is sort of our thought right now is we have these two campuses. They're only about 2 kilometers apart, and I think that's the biggest issue.
2 kilometers. What is that, like 500 feet?
Yeah. Sorry. We're this is what is that? 2.2 times it by 2.2, or divide by 2.2.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we have these two campuses. They're very close, and the reason for that is because in the city of Vancouver, it's very hard to find seats, venues that will work. Not only venue for the gathering, the main service, but for kids, and have rooms that will facilitate kids ministry and things like that. So it's been really tough. So we grew really quickly, and we needed a solution really quickly.
Yeah.
So we ended up finding another venue really close. So we started with this kind of, hey, we're now multi-campus, but realizing that in some ways we're still one, because there's a lot of crossover between the two sites.
Yeah.
So someone may wake up on a Sunday and go, hey, today I'm going to attend at the Granville Island campus, and then they wake up the next Sunday at a different hour and say, I'm going to attend at Fifth Avenue. So we've just found that also, we explored video options and planting campuses in other areas, and we still are desiring to do that over time. But we found that for now, the best model is sort of Norm, our lead pastor, preaching at all 4 services. There's 2 services at each campus. So he'll preach the one service, and then he'll go to the other campus and preach.
Okay.
And then he'll walk off stage and drive over to the other campus and preach. Gosh. And then he'll go one more time back to the other campus. So it's back and forth.
Wow. Campus slalom.
Slalom, you got it. Everything is timed almost to the minute when he should arrive and when he should walk off stage, and when the band needs to be done and when announcements need to be done.
Wow.
So it's been really, I guess, maybe stressful, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily sustainable.
Gotcha.
So we could see amalgamating the campuses, Lord willing, and preparing ourselves to plant another church. We planted a church about 2.5 years ago, and we're really committed to church planting. We really believe that is the most effective way to make Jesus known is by planting his churches. So we really are committed. We're a church planting church. We were committed to church planting from the day we started as a church plant ourselves. So we really want to plant another ministry, and we really feel that by amalgamating the 2 campuses, 4 services back into one, it would really strengthen us and get us ready for a proper plant somewhere in another part of the city.
See, so it's really it's a missional move. It's missional in the sense that it's coming together to kind of, really capture that substance and then go out for
Sure, and it's going to disrupt comfort big
Yeah.
time. Like,
Yeah.
we have people that have been attending that Fifth Avenue campus for almost 5.5 years, and if we
Wow.
decide to change things up, it will put them out of the comfort zone, for sure, for the sake of mission.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks for spending the time with us today. I know the team really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed our conversations. We've been able to spend some time together. And yeah, thank you very much. This is City Conversations. And I'm here with Chad MacDonald. I'm Joe Day. And we'll see you next time.
I thought that went pretty good.
Yeah. I don't
you got
have
all
like
your
a-
questions done?
What's that?
Did you get all?
We had a lot of them.
Yeah.
And we had a good thread, so I didn't want to
Yeah.